And we are back. And I'm here with Beryl Baker, and she wants to be your council person for Ward 1. And so do I. I want Beryl to be our council person for Ward 1. I think that she has the ability to solve problems, to be non-bipartisan, and I think she just has a lot of gifts, and I think that you, too, are going to decide that she is our next Ward 1 council person. Beryl, just in case, let everybody know just a little bit more about your history so that they can, understand a little bit more about the things you've done and that solid background that they may be looking for. I know you've been around doing stuff for a long time, so you got that background. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. I've lived in Ward 1 since I was about 7 years old. And I went to Menlo Park and Ross Scrooge and Tucson High.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore I have an historical perspective over the long term.
Right.
I've gone to hundreds of neighborhood meetings and many, many committee meetings and workshops and other things that related to.
Right. So you're the kind of person who believes in going to the people for your information, for your feedback, rather than behind closed doors. Is that kind of what that points to?
Well, that's where I've gathered mine. It's gone to the sources. I've gone to fact-finding meetings and numerous committee meetings and actually served on committees. So I think I have a sense of the pulse of the community and its needs.
Right, right. So I think that you're telling me that you've been doing, how long has it been you've been doing all this? For what, how many years, 25?
About 25, when the city came in and wanted to divide our neighborhood with a huge ditch. To take some water directly into the Santa Cruz River and take it away from the West Branch of the Santa Cruz. And they said at that time, oh, we can solve that problem of keeping water in the West Branch. Well, we didn't believe them.
Right.
And we basically nixed it. Now, and then at that time we also formed our neighborhood, of which I was one of the founding members, so that we could deal with these problems. Now, many years later, we discovered through the research of Phil Rosen and Catherine, forget her last name, that the West Branch is the last remnants of the Santa Cruz River, the original Santa Cruz River. It has 6 species of toad, one of which is a true frog.
Right.
It has numbers of priority species that the county is interested in. So the county ended up, because of that, and other things that came together, the county bought it for conservation. If we had allowed that ditch to go through, it would be gone by now.
Oh, great. That is awesome. So I can see you being a real problem solver, and but what I want you to do for me is to show the audience how you are this problem solver, and especially when you have a problem where you have 2 well-entrenched sides. And when you have that, often sometimes there isn't like a real clear good guy and bad guy. Often they both really feel that what they're promoting is for the good of the community, and they both believe that. Now, how do you come up with a solution when you have these 2 opposing sides that are sure that they're right, and move forward with that? How do you do that?
Well, there's a perfect example of that. Dave Yetman, who was president of Audubon at the time, and George Rowell, who was Natural University at the Natural Resource Department, put together a series of 3 workshops. And they brought ranchers and environmentalists together, in which they were like poles apart.
Right, they are.
Very and through a series of these workshops and brainstorming and etc., they actually began to realize that they had much in common and that they actually were helping each other. There was actually a place for both of them, and that they could work together. And out of that has come a lot of positive things out in the state. So
that is really neat. So can you think of any other times when you've had polarization kind of pan out in a good way? Was there polarization? How did the polarization in your neighborhood work out? Surely there was there was a clear winner on that one, though. There was the polarized side that wanted the ditch to go right through your neighborhood, and there was the polarized side that didn't. But one of them turned out to be right, I suppose. But tell me a little bit about that dynamic. How did that work out? I mean, did was that just a clear winner? Was it just one of those things where it was a little bit different? There was just a clear right and wrong, and right came out. Do you think?
I think in that case it was a clear winner for us.
Right.
And it did take about 15 years for it all to come to fruition.
Right. So you would actually know.
Yes.
And I find it interesting. So what I'm noticing right now is that sometimes you get two different opposing groups and they both have something to say and there's something to be worked out. And sometimes one of them just really, really right, and one of them is just off base. But I'm kind of thinking that you have an instinct. You've got to have kind of an instinct to be able to notice the difference between the two. And I think that perhaps you have that ability to. Can you think of any other times when there was a clear winner or a clear right and a clear wrong in your past that came through in the right side, or in the wrong side, a clear right and wrong, and it went the wrong way? Can you think of an event like that you could have maybe made it go differently?
Without thinking about that one, I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I'm sure I
Right,
could give an
right.
example, but again, I'm one of those people that has to think about the question before
Right.
I come up. When
Right, exactly.
You have so much knowledge as you get older that it's like, which part of it do I draw out from?
And that's another thing I've noticed about you, is that you're good at that. You're always thinking about what you're going to say, but when you're running, it's just something that you should do. I want somebody who's running for office for me to be something who clearly thinks about what they're saying, rather than just popping off at the mouth absent-mindedly. And I've noticed that about you, and so you've proven to me that you are indeed that way. So, are we gonna, when we get people off of out of our cars and onto bicycles, or maybe mixing riding their bike and the bus, are there any other? Do you think that we're for sure just going to stick with the bus systems, or are you open to new different ideas? How's that going to work out?
I'm open to anything that helps our environment and helps us to have a sustainable future and helps us to have clean air, a high quality life. I'm open to anything that works to do that.
So that means that if I think that a big box is a good idea for Tucson, even though you're for small businesses, that if you think that there's a big box that is going to provide a positive force to the community, and it just overwhelmingly looks that way, you're not going to dig your heels in the dirt and just stick an ideology. You're going to be open-minded and consider something that might be a little bit out of what
I would attempt to be. On the flip side of all businesses, though, while we're doing business and taking care of business, we also have to be aware of the impact that it has on neighborhoods. We have to protect the neighborhoods as well. We can't just be all business. And the conversely thing is, of course, we can't be all neighborhood.
Right, absolutely.
I'm a neighborhood activist,
Uh-huh.
and I believe in taking care of the neighborhoods. But also the neighborhoods have to have a say in things. And it's like the businesses will say, well, the neighborhoods have all the power, and the neighborhoods say, well, the businesses have all the power.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, how do we come together so we can figure out what's the best for everybody? And that takes a holistic viewpoint, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's not something you can just glibly say, oh, yeah, I can do this. It takes people willing to come together and work together.
And I think the same is true with the environment. You get some people that are all about people, the people, and some people that want to leave people out of the equation, the environment. And I can see both sides to that story. But I think, like you do, that there is a way for communities to have good jobs and also serve the environment as well.
Well, and also, too, good jobs include the environment, because if we destroy our natural systems, the tourism that brings in the reasons why people come here, they're going to say, why do I want to go there? I'll give you a really extreme example.
Yeah.
If we were to allow the development in the Sabino Canyon,
Right.
what would happen there? So we have to be aware of that too, that the natural environment is one of the things that draws people here, and if we allow it to be destroyed, we're destroying our tourism jobs.
Right. I definitely agree. There's a lot of directions that Tucson has sometimes taken, in my opinion, or threatened to take, that might make people think, why on earth would I want to live in Tucson? At the same time, I kind of would like for growth to be well thought out and not just willy-nilly growth, and it's all about growth. I know that my city has to grow, and I want it to grow in a way that's smart, you know, perhaps leaving land aside as it grows and growing through the land, and, you know, picking and choosing and not destroying everything in its path might be one of my personal ideas about that.
And we have on the east side done some of that. I worked with the stormwater committee for, you know, either on it or watching it or being part of it, I guess for about 15 years. And what I saw come out of that was a lot of rules, regs, etc. Very weak, very weak. They really needed to be strengthened. But they put in place opportunities for us to do something different. Like, for instance, the Atterbury Wash is a gym. And the neighborhoods over there recognize it and have been trying to do things to protect it and make it part of their community. And as a result, there's a large part of it that's being looked at as, yes, this should be like a park within the city. As we grow around it, it should be protected because it is part of who we are inside. If we destroy it, we've destroyed a piece of ourselves.
Well, lately, there's one thing I have been pleased about what we've done, and I'm pleased the way we've been handling our rivers and washes of late. Because like you, I was raised here. And I can tell you personally, I don't have data, I don't have statistics, but I do know how the washes and rivers looked when I was young. They had a lot more trash in them, cars, this, that, the other thing. And now they're clean, and they have wonderful bike trails going everywhere, and they're even becoming, you know, useful as paths that bikes can go and escape traffic and even get to one place to the other pretty quickly without having to fight with cars. And that's one area that I feel that we have done very, very well. Over the last many years, what's one of the best decisions that you think Tucson has made? Or one really good decision that Tucson might have made over the last few decades, or an improvement that you saw that you liked?
Well, I liked that we stopped semen in all our washes, which was a prelude to Atterbury, is what I'm talking about.
Right.
When they did Mission Road and they put in a ditch into the West Branch, they put it in such a way that it actually was more detrimental to the wash, and it was going to cut down the wash. And I said at the time to the engineers, that's going to cut down the wash, and their response was, we want it to do that. We want it to be a ravine. But if you know anything about deserts, the original deserts, they weren't ravines. They were broad, open places. I mean, the Santa Cruz River itself, when it came down, used to be like 4 miles wide when you had the flooding. It wasn't this ditch.
Right.
So we haven't quite got to the point where we're making the decisions that will help us to maintain those, but we're making progress.
Very good, and we are making progress. I want to really focus on the mainstream Republicans and the mainstream Democrats, because I really think that I look things over, and I think you're in a very unique position to where I can see you helping out Democrats and Republicans in the way that our other choice, just can't. Maybe for a super hardcore Democrat that isn't going to vote any other way, your opponent might be good for that person. But please back me up on this a little bit. I really, really feel that you have a very unique position to where if you're not an entrenched Democrat that isn't going to vote any differently anyway, that you might be the person, though you are a Democrat. And also for the Republican.
Actually, I'm a green. I'm labeled a green.
That's right.
I'm labeled a green.
You're labeled a green.
Right.
I know that. But you're not Democrat and you're not Republican. But I think that you can serve those two groups exceptionally well. And so, am I right about that? And if I am, tell me a little bit more about why.
I like to think that.
Mm-hmm.
When I decided to become a Green, what I noticed about the Greens is that they tended to take what I perceived as the best from both sides. For instance, their fiscal they believe in fiscal responsibility, which is considered a Republican.
Yes, it is considered Republican.
They're environmentally sensitive, which is considered a Democrat.
Right, it is.
So I think it's not just though that I'm labeled green, it's also because I believe that the only way we're going to solve our problem is to bring people together. And when I'm listening out there to people talking to me and giving me their feedback, I recognize this is going to be a tough job.
Right.
And one of the first things, if I were elected, I'd want to do was to put together a series of times when we brought all those people together and did similar to what David Yetman did and George Rowell, and find some common ground and then work from there.
Yeah, that's what I would really, really want out of Tucson, in all honesty. I want Tucson to be a place where the quality of life is high because of the green aspect. The air is clean, there's parks close by, but I want Tucson to have a better job situation than it's ever had, and I've never truly felt it's as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I want, and I want more fiscal responsibility. The way that the city handled Rio Nuevo blows me away. I can't quite understand it. What were they thinking? I know that those people, each and every one of them, in my opinion, does care about the community. As far as I know, unless somebody proves me wrong, that's how I feel, that each one of those people do care about it. But they did all that, and what I want them to do is I want them to be fiscally responsible, and I want them to bring good, high-paying jobs to my town that people will want to come to Tucson. At the same time, I want them to have balance about growth, and I want them to grow Tucson in a way that we don't lose our quality of life.
Right.
And the sky turns brown, and it's just this one big hot block that destroys everything in its path. And I think that if we filled our city government with people like you, that we would get that. And that's why I'm backing you up. So tell me a little bit about not what made you just kind of like run, but how did you get interested? You're not a politician, but somewhere along the line you started paying attention to politics. And at what point and how did that take place?
Well, that took place when we had the ditch come through.
The ditch company, that was your first.
That was my first inkling that there was something that needed to be done.
And you liked it, and you won. So you know what it is you got in, and you were victorious.
And our neighborhood was victorious.
Yeah, your neighborhood was. That's right.
One person cannot do it by themselves.
That's right.
It has to be a community.
But you were on the victorious side, and then you probably felt a little bit emboldened about that, and you went on, and you went on, and you're right. One person can't. Can you tell me a little bit? I know that you mentioned it on your website, so I know that you're willing to do this. Tell me a little bit about who you like. Who you like that is on a city council? Am I correct? Didn't you mention somebody that you like?
Oh, Steve. I like Steve.
And tell me why.
I don't like all of his decisions or all the things he decides to do and etc.
Right.
But I like the fact that he thinks. He reads the material. He asks questions, and he's willing to go it alone. He's willing to say no in the minority. He's willing to stand his ground. And if we had all of our city council people like that were willing to actually look at the issues and then work them out together, I think we could move forward.
And that is the interesting dynamic of how difficult the job is. And because you have to be willing to work with people. You have to be willing to compromise. And at the same time, there comes a time when you have to just draw a line in the sand. And it's amazingly, and it's extremely human and very complex about when those times are. And I don't think you can get it out of a textbook. I think you get it out of experience. I think it's harder for a young person, for example, to have it. than an older person. And I think that, you have the experience for that. I'd like to go just one last time to listen to one last Rudy song,
Okay.
and then we'll be back and we'll tell everybody goodbye. So in a moment, please, if you'll do that, if you'll pull up that Rudy song, this last Rudy song.
Here's one I wrote about trying to get back home. I left my home so long ago. Mom and Dad, I miss them so. I get so lonesome out on the road, so I'm bound to ride that train back home. I'm bound to ride that train back home. I'm bound to ride that southern train back home. There's a girl back in the mountains. I left her there so long ago. And every night I dream about her. That's why I'm on my way back home. I'm bound to ride that train back home. I'm bound to ride that southern train back home. There's a wind that keeps us blowing. It gets so cold it chills my bones, and I can hear the mountains calling, telling me to come back home. I'm bound to ride that train back home. I'm bound to ride that southern train back home.
And we are back. And I've been here with Beryl Baker, and she is going to be our next Ward 1 council person. And she's been blowing me away with the balance that she has. And she if you've been, I hope you've been watching, because she's been telling me stuff I like to hear. But I read something that you showed me, and you told me the story, and I just want you to share it. It's an amazing story about in World War II, about the retooling of America. And when you said that, it really opened doors to, we have a lot more opportunity than we think. And explain to everybody why we have more opportunity than we think we do to make quick, hard, fast, smart changes.
Okay. I'll try to tell the story quickly. I got this from Lester Brown, and I watched him on PBS, and I thought, oh, this is another environmentalist. And it got to the end of that, and he's told a story about World War II, when the president told the nation, we're going to build so many tanks. Now, whether you agree with war or not, we're going to build so many tanks and so many this and so many that. Then he went to the car companies and he said, we're going to depend on you. And the car company said, well, we can't build new cars and tanks at the same time. And the president said, you don't get it. We're banning the sale of all new cars in the United States, which is what they did. And within months, they retooled the economy into a huge war machine. We have the technology, we have the expertise in this community to retool our city and create a vibrant, thriving new future within the next few years. If they can do it, if the greatest generation of World War II can retool a nation in that amount in just months,
I know.
we should be able to retool it in the next few years.
for our upcoming really big problems we have.
Yep.
And you know, Beryl, that is always kind of like, I've always kind of almost dismissed that story because it sounds a little impossible. Because I've always wondered, well, you know, we were kind of the sleeping nation, we didn't have this, that, and the other thing, and you know, and suddenly we were in this war, and said, poof, we came out with all this war machinery. And in the back of my mind said, well, how did we do that? It must be smoke and mirrors, you know. But no, it's not smoke and mirrors. We really did that.
We really did that.
And I never really fully appreciated that until you told me that story. So Beryl opened my mind to what is possible for our nation. And I want, you know, you to feel the same thing. I want, you know, for us to have that opportunity to just go to do something great in this generation. And I think that if we think like you do, and maybe we will, and we'll get these problems solved. And Beryl, I sure appreciate it. Our time's about up. We're just down to a few seconds. So I sure thank you for coming and talking with me and sharing with everybody. And I hope that you vote for Beryl Baker because she's a balanced person. And if you're a Democrat or Republican, I think that she will give you what you want. So vote for her today. And bye. Say bye-bye and hello to everybody. We love you.